What's up, Trap? How you guys doing? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I hope you like this video. This is your review for Love and Marriage Huntsville Season 3 Reunion Part 2. So, we pick up where we left off last week with Martel not being able to answer the question about had he met, I'm going to call her real name, Ariane, first, would he have still married Melody? And he really wouldn't answer the question. And so Carlos sort of lets him off the hook. And Carlos says, well, let me just say this. I feel like you really, truly were in love with two women. And he says, you know, maybe Melody just wasn't enough. And I don't know if he meant it like that. But let me say how I love how Melody was like, no, I was enough and I'm never going to accept that I wasn't. I said, I know that's right. Before I go there, let me put a pin in that real quick. Something I did forget to mention in last week's review that I do want to make sure I stress. The show has gotten a lot of criticism. I agree with Marcel on this point he made last week. But the show has gotten a lot of criticism about it being salacious and being about a lot of mess. And this isn't what we thought we signed up for. We thought the show was going to be very positive and be very much about construction and giving back to the community. And even though the show sort of went in a salacious direction, I think Marcel brought up a valid point to say, but let's look at what we have. You know, in the 3 years, really probably 4 if you add in the breaks and stuff like that. In the 4 years that we've been following these people, we have seen a black woman get a double master's degree. We have seen a black man get a law degree. We have seen a woman working on the front lines and the height of our biggest medical crisis in 100 years. You know, we've seen black businesses open. We've seen Melody do all of the things that she's been able to do. And so, yes, the show is very salacious. Look, it ain't the highest rated show on all for no reason. But I do think that that's a valid point that Marcel brought up, and I wanted to bring that back to this review to say, listen, we can pay attention to the salaciousness, but also pay attention to the fact that people are moving and shaking on this show as well. And even though it wasn't what we were originally sold about the comeback group and everything like that, I don't want us to lose sight that we're still seeing black excellence. Okay, all right. Now let's get back to the salaciousness. Okay, so we continue to have this whole conversation about Ariane and Martel and Melody, and we get into the conversation about, did any of the men know about Martel's extracurricular activities? And Maurice was like, yeah, nah, we ain't never hang out. I ain't know her like that. And Marcel was like, nah, I met her. You know, and you know, we had a guys weekend down in Atlanta, and she popped up, and you know, we would be out sometime, out and about, and she would, you know, be around, and you know, we told Martel that this ain't cool, but he grown. Like, I feel like what Marcel was saying was, but he grown. Like, yeah, we told him it wasn't cool, but he grown. Like, you know, and I think this was a perfect example of women, and I'm not saying all women, I'm not saying all men, so y'all don't put that in my comments. But I think this is a general example of the difference between men and women. Because Kimmy's thing was, I wouldn't have stayed. If I'm out with my girlfriend and she's cheating on her husband and he shows up, I'm not hanging out with them. And I would have left. And Melody said, yeah, I would have done the same thing. And Letitia was like, yeah, let's be clear. Marcel didn't tell me nothing about this until after it became public what was going on with Marcel. Until not public, but after our friend group knew what was going on, then that's when he told me. She said, because let's be clear, if I knew, I would have told Melody because we were friends and it would have put me in an awkward place. And I would have told Melody what was going on. And that's why Marcel didn't tell his wife. I believe every bit of that. I believe Marcel didn't tell Letitia, and I do believe Letitia, before this show, Letitia and Melody were at a place where I think she would have told Melody what was going on, right? And like Kimmy said, I wouldn't have been there. Now, Maurice said that he wouldn't have left. He said, listen, because I feel like, I think he was given what answer can I give so that my wife don't whoop my ass? Because he gave I think I could have done a lot more to change things from the inside rather than the out. bro, ain't nothing to change. Your boy is cheating on his wife. Either you gonna hang out and y'all gonna hang out, or you not. And again, unfortunately, most of us, I ain't gonna speak for everybody in the world, but unfortunately, I think most of us have found ourselves in this situation or some variation of this situation. And again, everybody handles it differently, you know. Anyway, so moving on. Then we get into the whole conversation about, well, why aren't you with her? Like, if this was the woman that, you know, you put your marriage on the line with, and you risked everything for, why you not with her? Like, why aren't y'all together? You know, you still out here dating other people. If she's the one, and Martel was like, well, listen, just because, you know, that don't mean that me and her gonna be together. Like, that don't mean that it's the one, that she is the one. And Melody said that Martel used to say to her, well, I would never be with her. I would never marry her. And he was like, yeah. And so I was just like, I don't know what the hell is wrong with Martel. Y'all, I don't. Anyway, so then they go to break. And Melody is upset. She's like, I don't understand why we giving this woman so much attention. She was like, I get it that we got to ask some questions about her. Like, I get that. But I feel like we just spent a whole lot of time on her, and I don't understand why she's getting this much attention. I can see where Melody is coming from. I can understand where Melody is coming from. And then we see Melody have like a breakdown. You know, Melody had a really bad breakdown in her dressing room, and you know, Melody wants to leave. She doesn't want to stay in Huntsville. She said Huntsville has a very dark cloud for her. It is not a fun place to be. She doesn't want to live there. But it sounds like that she has to legally stay there, or at least it's more convenient for her to stay there. She said, you know, I can't get full custody because I would have to show that he's a totally incompetent parent, and you know, he's not that. But because we have joint custody, I can't move to Atlanta. I can't move my kids to Atlanta. And I understand where she's coming from. If being in that city where there's so many memories and there's so much other stuff that's there, it's really, really hard for her to function. And I believe that that's why every chance she gets, she runs back to Atlanta. I mean, that's something that Martel has said, that she goes to Atlanta every single chance she gets. And I do think that Melody is only maintaining an address in the city limits for legal purposes. I don't even think it's for the show at this point. I don't think she give a damn about the show at this point, because she's got so many other opportunities, because her and Carlos have such a great relationship. I don't even think it's that. I really think it's the legal reasons of her marital custody. I mean, her divorce custody situation. I think it's the only reason why she is still within the city limits. But anyway, so that's that. So we come back from break, and Miss Destiny joins us, and Destiny looked good. Listen, one thing, and even when Destiny was getting on my nerves, honey, Destiny is a beautiful, beautiful woman, and she looked good, even to the point where Carlos was like, baby, I'm going to have to give you a prayer cloth, okay? I'm going to have to put a prayer cloth over you, baby, because, ma'am, you're looking good, and I don't even like women, and I want to sop you up like a biscuit, you know. So they sort of joked about that a little bit, and then, you know, they gave Destiny the hard questions, which basically are the questions we all had all season. One, how long were you married? They were married for a little over 2 years, I think she said, a little under 2 years, somewhere in that window. How long were you dating? We dated about 5.5 years, but we didn't live together. And so Carlos was like, well, what happened? Like, what it was? She said, well, it was a combination of all of the above. It was a combination of us not living together. Like, we dated for 5 years, but we ain't lived together for 5 years. Having a baby so soon changes everything. And COVID. And listen, we all know that relationships lived and died during COVID. We know that people found love. We know that people lost love. And it sounds like that her marriage was very much a casualty of the pandemic. We've heard rumors. I'm not going to go there and get into all of that, but we've definitely heard rumors about their relationship even before the panty. So even if all of that is true, the panty didn't help. And she said that he filed for divorce 3 weeks after she had their son. That's bad. That tells me that they were ready to get divorced before she had the baby, and he waited what he thought was a respectable time period from when she had the baby to file. Because I feel like he probably was ready to file the day before she had that baby, but tried to keep it look somewhat respectable. That's how I took it. Now y'all tell me if y'all took it differently. She said that their relationship now is, some days they cool, some days they're not. And I think, again, that's honest and that's fair. They're still in the process of going through, I'm sure they still have angry days. They still have mad days. She still has days where she's looking at him like, I wish I never met you. And then she's having days where she's like, damn, I wish I never left you. She did say that he was the one that filed. It was not her. She filed. They brought up her mouth. They played the clip with her and Martel down to the shop when he said, that's why women, that's why you getting a divorce now, because you on that mouth. And Destiny was like, listen, I'll accept the fact that I got a mouth and I got that big D energy. But I don't see how that's a bad thing. And maybe when I meet the right man, he'll bring the woman out of me. I said, you know what? That was a perfect way of answering that question. That was a perfect way of answering that. I'm not going to dignify Martel and what he think a woman should and shouldn't do, because I think a husband shouldn't cheat on his wife and disrespect her and be condescending to her and all the things that he did to her. So you don't get to have an opinion. Anyway, moving on. Something else I was going to say about Destiny. Now, the one thing, and again, I know we have a whole other part to get to, but I don't feel like we explored the Destiny Melody friendship situation that was sort of a theme this season as well. Again, I know we have a whole nother part, and so maybe we'll get to that next week. And that's fine, but I was kind of waiting to see that, waiting to kind of get that part of it. That's pretty much Destiny, child. That's pretty much Destiny. Then we brought out Tiffany and Lewis. We got into the whole transparency conversation, and they brought up the whole. Now I still feel like Letitia was being messy as hell, talking about, well, we don't know anything about you. Tell me your dirt. Tell me all of that. And Tiffany's thing was, listen, that's just not how real life works. Like, that's not how you get to know somebody. You don't just walk up to somebody and say, hey, where's your dirt? Where's your dirt? And I agree with that 100%. But I also saw the other point of view of, but you are so clear about telling everybody else our business or telling everybody else their business. Like, what's all that about? And the one thing that Kimmy brought up that I thought was a valid way of saying it was, be transparent about your business. But what you were doing was being transparent about our business. And Carlos brought up the comments, and he talked about how brutal the comments have been about Tiffany and that they wanted her fired and this and this and that. And she said, honestly, to be very candid, I'm surprised I didn't jump off of a bridge, because the comments were bad and they were about the tens of thousands. It wasn't a couple of comments. It wasn't even a couple of hundred comments. It was tens of thousands of comments. And it was bad, They brought up the whole monster thing again. And listen, again, y'all know I love Kimmy. Kimmy and Maurice were both very much like when Lewis was later on talking about something, they better be glad I ain't had no shot, or that conversation would have went differently. Here go Kimmy. I wish you had got that shot, because what was going to change? What was going to change, bruh? Get your shot. Do what you got to do. But now, tell me what's going to change. And Lewis, I felt like Lewis was doing a little bit of backpedaling and pussy popping off of that thing. And he was like, well, I mean, I'm just saying, I'm just saying, Yeah. Because at the end of the day, and you know, Kimmy brought up a point where she said that she sort of was kind of waiting for Melody and Letitia and the other ladies to sort of kind of have her back. When I came up at the brunch, she said I was sort of taken aback and I really didn't have my wits about me, which is probably a good thing because my response might have been a lot worse had I had my wits about me and could express myself the way that maybe I wanted to express myself. Melody was like, she hadn't heard it before. She was shocked too. Now, I'm not going to say I necessarily agree with this, Kimmy. I don't think it was the other ladies' place to kind of jump in. I mean, if they had, that would have been fine. But I don't think that necessarily needed to be the expectation. I mean, if they had done it, that would have been great. You know, but at the end of the day, Tiffany was wrong. I think y'all handled it the way y'all needed to handle it. You sort of nipped it in the bud in the moment. You went home. You talked to your husband about it. And then y'all went to them and had a grown folk conversation about it. And I just think that was the best way to handle it. I think it was handled perfectly. The only thing that was mishandled was once the apology was given, that's it. That's all. Don't go back home and now you Billy Badass in your backyard. No. You apologized because you were wrong. Now let's just move the fuck on and keep it moving and just be done with it. The other thing, let me go back a second. The other thing that was brought up about the Destiny situation was about her not taking her husband's last name. And her thing was, well, first of all, we had already discussed it. I thought we were clear about it. And if that, you know, I didn't realize it was going to be to that scale. And again, y'all, Kimmy be dropping gems. Again, Kimmy brought up a good point and said, listen, I think we need to be clear about what our non-negotiables are. And we need to stand in it. Now, y'all have heard me say that before about non-negotiables in relationships. And she said, you know, I know that had I not taken my husband's last name, I know that was a deal breaker. I know that was. We had the conversation. He was clear about that. And I was okay with it. You know, but understanding Destiny's reason for not wanting to do it, there has to be clear intent in saying this is a non-negotiable and ain't nothing changing if I don't do it. I mean, and there's something that's going to change. And Kimmy did a good job of articulating this about legacy. Like, it's a big deal to men, not because it's traditional, not because that's what it's expected of a woman, but because it is about leaving a legacy. It is about these are your namesake. This is your family. This is your responsibility, which I guess is traditional. But it is about the name. It is about carrying on that legacy. You know, and I think Kimmy did I'm glad it came from a female. It came from Kimmy because I think sometimes, you know, I'm all about being a modern woman and all of that. But I do think that there's some things that we should maintain the tradition. You know, I'm okay with a hyphen, you know, and I'm even okay with professional reasons. Like, for example, my sister just got married a couple of months ago. My sister is, you know, a good age. And she's been single all this time. All of everything is in her maiden name. She is going to, you know, take her husband's name, but there's a lot of legal layers to that. When you know, it's one thing when you're 20 or 25. It's something different when you're in your 40s. You know, and now you are adding another name and you have property and you own a home or you own other property and you have portfolios, you have things. It's a lot of layers to it. So I don't think it's always about women not wanting to do it because they're such modern women. I think sometimes it's just out of convenience. Like, bruh, you know how much I got to do to change my last name? You know, credit cards, driver's license. It's a lot. Anyway, so back to the Tiffany and Lewis situation. So Marcel seemed to have a really big problem with Lewis always wanting to give his unsolicited advice about marriage. And again, Marcel brought us some valid points. Marcel was like, listen, you always want to tell people about being married when you've been married a whole year. Like, he said, anybody can do it for a year. And Destiny was like, Kimmy gonna say, girl, you made it 2 years, you good. You know, like, he talking about you. But he said, at this point, all you've shown me that you know how to do is to get divorced. Like, you are successful in getting divorced. He said, and there's no shame in that. Some people, I'm not shaming anybody for getting a divorce. Like, people have to do what's best for them. But don't turn around and say, oh, I was divorced, I got remarried, and I've done it successfully for a year. Now I can give everybody else advice. Now, Lewis brought up a good point to say, yes, but I've learned some things. In my failure, there was a lesson. And I know some things, and I see some things that maybe I can help you see so that you don't make the mistakes that I made. And I think that's what Lewis was trying to say. And of course, Marcel wasn't in a place to receive it. Because hell, Marcel don't want to receive advice from people who they did go to school for it, and they do have, credentials in it. So he damn sure don't want to hear from you. I mean, it just is what it is. Marcel don't want to hear from no damn body. Because in Marcel's mind, he got all the answers, and he don't need anybody's help to tell him nothing. I mean, that's just what it is. Then they said, Carlos said, do you all think that Tiffany and Lewis are being totally transparent in their business? And all of them said no, honey. All of them said no. Down to they said, well, I heard that Tiffany got fired from the chamber. And baby, you can hear a pin drop. Even Melody ain't say nothing. Now, here's what I know about Melody Hope. Two things I observed. If it were not true, Melody would have spoken up because that is her friend. And Melody been defending Tiffany all season. Has she not? The second thing that I picked up on was throughout all of this, when Carlos even said, well, Melody said, listen, I know Tiffany professionally. I don't know her as a friend. But you was defending her all season like y'all was cool. Like y'all was ace boom cool. Like y'all, go out after the chamber meetings and go have brunch or something. And y'all know, like, that ain't how you been betraying it. And again, I know on these reality shows, I know we get that's my friend. And we find out later they wasn't really friends. Portia. I know that. But all I'm saying is, I know Melody Hope well enough by now to know that Melody would have been defending Tiffany. In my opinion, I'm just saying. I also feel like Tiffany is the type of person that play word games. So Tiffany may not have gotten fired, but I think the better question that Carlos should have followed up with was, are you still working with the chamber? And if the answer is no, then we know that the truth is somewhere in the middle. Maybe she didn't get fired. Maybe she was asked to walk away. Maybe she chose to resign in lieu of, right? So anyway, that was part 2, child. Now next week we get Miss Wanda. Lord knows what we're going to get next week. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Drop it in the comments. Peace.